everybody. Welcome back to the Mindful of You podcast. This is episode 70, Missions and Mental Health with Taylor DeWitt-Alowitz. I'm super excited for you guys to get to listen to this conversation. I talked to Taylor for quite a while. We had a lot of catching up to do, and I don't know if you've ever been around returned missionaries talking about their missions, but we can talk for a while. So I did my best to keep it as short as I could, but it is a longer episode. I'd encourage you to listen to all of it, though, because it's a great episode. Taylor has a lot of insight to share. A little bit more about her. I believe her and her husband live out in California. She's a mother of 2 kids. I believe she has around a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. Hopefully I'm getting that right. Very adorable family. She's an incredible person. I learned so much from her and attribute so much of who I am to what she taught me just in a short 5 months living together. So I hope you guys enjoy this conversation, and without further ado, here it is. Hi, Taylor.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good.
Good. Or should I say, hermana, do it?
Yes. I
Just
haven't heard
kidding.
that in a long time.
I know. Because you're Alowitz now, right?
Yes, Alois. Mhm.
Perfect. Very cool. Well, I'm so excited you're here. 1, because I think this is going to be a really cool interview. And 2, because I've just missed you. You're one
Yeah,
of my best
I missed
friends.
you too. This is awesome.
And so I'm like, this is awesome. Maybe like any friend I haven't seen in a while, I'm just going to make come on my podcast so that we
Sounds like
can
a good
just
podcast.
make it happen. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Well, let's just go ahead and jump into it.
Okay.
So we're talking about mental health and missions. And this is like a broad topic. I kind of addressed it already in an episode with Ben. I don't know if you listened to
Yes,
that
I
one, but it was
did.
more like early return missionaries, but this is just missions in general. So yeah. My first question here is, out of curiosity, how was your mental health prior to your mission?
I was remembering, and I honestly felt good. Like, I really
Yeah.
didn't have to face a lot of hard things before the mission necessarily. My parents were going through their issues, but I
Uh-huh.
felt untouchable. Like, I really felt great. Um, yeah, I just never experienced something really hard. I was ready to go. I didn't know what to expect or anything like that, but I felt like I was in a good mindset, like I was gonna go and conquer all these things, and I was
Yeah.
excited, really. I had no fears, just
Oh my
ready.
gosh. Exactly the same for me.
Yeah.
Like I was like the cockiest little girl ever.
Yeah.
I was like so
Yes.
ready. I
Got
was
humbled.
like, yeah, I know. I'm like, we all know where that story ended
Yes.
up, but yeah, I was so just excited and ready. And like, I didn't feel like the same as you. Like I had a lot of mental health struggles prior to my mission, and my sweet parents that love me so much just blame Paraguay for everything I faced, which I don't think that's 100% fair, but I can understand where they're coming from because I really did feel great before.
Yeah.
So, um, how was your mental health as you were like adjusting to being a missionary?
It was difficult. I remember there's just so many new things when you first get into the mission field. I think regardless of where you are called, but maybe for us maybe it was a little bit different. We were called into a foreign country. And that
Mm-hmm.
in itself is major culture shock in just so many ways. You know, you're not used to the way things are, or you don't have any of the comforts you're used to from home. Um, and I struggled with that a lot. I thought I was depressed to a point where I was going to go home in my training. I remember
Mm-hmm.
just waking up and just crying and crying. And oh, poor little
Oh.
Hermana DeWitt was so nervous and scared. Um, I was grateful for my trainer because she was so patient with me. And,
Mm-hmm.
she let me cry. She let me do all these things. And then we're like, okay, let's just, take it an easy day. And, we'd still go out and do quite a bit of things. But I remember talking to Hermana Evans, our mission president's wife. And
An angel, a
yeah,
true
oh my
angel.
goodness, love her. And, she would help me try and process all these things. And I would do my very
Yeah.
best to really like dig deep and like, okay, is this just maybe a circumstantial thing for now, or is it really something? And it took several months for me to kind of get out of that. But yeah, it was hard, I think at first. There were so many things going on in my mind where I'm just like, this isn't my mission. I don't know if I can do
Mhm.
this. And I think that's pretty normal for every missionary to kind of go through. But the end result might be different for different missionaries. But felt grateful that I think I found my groove and I was pretty okay. Like I found something to hold on to and I kept going. I don't know. But I
Yeah.
didn't think I was
Yeah,
gonna make it out, to be
absolutely.
honest.
Yeah, no, and that reminded me of something because you said you felt like you were in the wrong mission. You wanted to go to Argentina,
I
right?
wanted to go to Argentina and I had been in the MTC right before then. Those my
Oh, in
people.
Argentina,
Yeah,
right?
I was there right before.
That's crazy.
And my heart of hearts was like, this is not my land. Like sitting in Paraguay, these are
Yeah.
not my people. This is not my
Yeah.
country. And I don't, for some reason, I really struggled with that. Leaving Argentina at the MTC and then coming to Paraguay, I was convinced this was not my mission. I was like,
Well, yeah.
it's wrong. Like, get me out of
And for
here.
and for context, you are half Argentine, right?
Yes, yes, half Argentine.
Oh yeah, because I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't want people to think you're saying they're your people just because you think it's a pretty country.
No,
Because
yeah. Been there quite a few times
yeah,
and all my family's there and so that's where I felt like I belonged,
yeah,
but obviously not, and that's okay.
yeah, yeah. But you grew to love Paraguay,
Yes.
right?
Oh my
Or
gosh.
no?
Yes, absolutely. I've
Okay.
learned that not every Paraguayan loves Argentines and it's the same for Argentines. Not everyone loves Paraguayans. So I'm like was just careful who I told, but I was very proud that I could say that I was half Argentine but still love the Paraguayan people and its culture. So I was really grateful for
Yeah,
that.
yeah, absolutely. Um, I might be throwing random questions at you
I
because
love it.
memories are going to come back to
Yes,
me as
me
you're
too.
talking. So you went to the MTC in Argentina. Were you in like a fast track group like for your Spanish? Because you
Yes.
already spoke some, right?
Yes, I understood pretty much everything. My speaking was pretty good. I didn't take a test before. I knew you were supposed to, but I never took a test going in, like so that the MTC could kind of figure out your track. I just didn't
Interesting.
do it. Like, shocker. But I just didn't do it, and so I got there expecting to be on the 6 week track. And so I was
Oh,
prepping myself. I'm like, yeah, like when I saw all the missionaries, I got to know them over the time we traveled from Atlanta to Argentina. I was so excited. I'm like, all these, these Americans all doing this together, like this is so fun. Then I got there, they already knew who I was. There was some background story to that with my mom, but they knew who I was, and I was on put into the 2.5 week track, and I was like, could not believe it. But I was still kind of mixed in with the Americans and the Spanish missionaries. So I had three companions. It was kind of crazy. I could be alone
weird.
sometimes, but I was out of there fast. I
Interesting.
was shocked, but I was ready. But
Yeah. Yeah, because I know I mean, the language was hard for me. I don't think I knew quite as much as you did, but I did know quite a
you
bit
did know quite a
to
bit,
the
yes.
point that, yeah, to the point that they were like, they fast tracked me when I took my test. And it was good because, like, I fell on my face in the MTC first. And so I could fall on my face again when I got to Paraguay, but I was more used to it by then.
Oh my
But I
gosh.
know for a lot of people, like the language learning part is like a huge like struggle, and then other people, it's they're like frustrated that they don't get to get like learn
Yeah.
a language, and that's frustrating for
Yeah.
them too. So just kind of interesting. Um, okay, this is where we could probably talk for like a half hour. What was it like to train
To train
me?
you.
Yeah, particularly with my up and down emotions.
Yeah. I think this is the first time we've talked about this, have we? Like you and I together.
Oh yeah, no, we've never talked
Okay,
about this
yeah.
before. No.
Um, Pitch in whenever you remember things, because I have my perspective and you have your perspective. So, when
Yeah.
I remember when I first got you, you and I both know that there were some things that I was dealing with at the time that were
Yeah.
not great things, and so I was trying to work through some of that stuff. And then Mal came in as a new missionary, And so that
Mhm.
was rough. Like, and I knew that that was my fault. There were things that I was contributing to our companionship that were making things rough.
Mhm.
And so that was hard. Yeah, that was rough in itself. But I remember, I don't feel like I remember you coming in I didn't really know or feel the anxiety from you right away. Um,
I don't think it was there right
no,
away. Yeah.
it definitely came over time. Um, I do remember there were probably like little moments here and there that I remembered. Um, I was like, oh, like, it's okay. But I also remember like seeing you as a new missionary and the way that you reacted to certain things or that you were like, you just reminded me of myself when I was in my training. So
Mhm.
nothing was really alarming necessarily, and nothing was too like out of hand, if that makes sense or anything. I was just,
Mhm.
I saw you and I'm like, you're adjusting. It's okay. Um,
Yeah.
and that's how it was. I do remember, again, there were things that I think my style of training or the way I was as a missionary was not, I don't think we always aligned on what we agreed, which,
What I was expecting.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And yeah,
Mhm.
I think I was a lot more of a lax missionary. My
Mhm.
attitude and the way that I handled things was very like go with the flow. And that wasn't always the best decision or the right decision. And
Mhm.
Mal was definitely the other way, a little bit more like, there are expectations and there are rules, which was helpful to me. I think I needed a little bit of a push in that way. Um,
Well, and what's fun is like now I have a husband who's much more go with the flow and I'm still me. So
I love it. I love it.
but no, I remember that as well. I remember the first couple of weeks just being confused because I thought like missionary work was going to be like so hard and so like go 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 because that's what I'd been told in the MTC. But I think the fact that you could see I was struggling a little bit probably inclined you to be like, no, let's slow down. But my productive mentality was like, no, I just got to like push through the pain, like
Yeah.
I just got to go. But what helped you when you were in your training was slowing down. Right. And so I think that is what I needed. I think I was just so confused because my expectations were like all over the place for what a mission was going to be like. Our area was also really slow.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah. Because a lot of missionaries like would go straight to areas where they were like interviewing, baptizing every week, and that's just busier.
Yeah.
So there just wasn't as much like actively for us to do, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember that being kind of as a struggle. And it was interesting. Obviously, Mel and I were still trying to get to know each other as a companionship over the first few weeks. So, like, you know, it's hard to come in and then be new and then try and lay your foundation for yourself as a missionary while also needing to be trained. That's difficult. Like, I remember feeling that way with my trainer as well, and just trying to figure out, okay, you're trying to figure out what kind of missionary you want to be, how you want to work, what does that look like for you and your service and with Heavenly Father. Um, so yeah, we kind of, I think there are things that were just new and different,
Yeah.
I think. And
Yeah.
I
I
had,
think by the time though, I remember because we got our third transfer together, which isn't normal.
yes,
Usually trainers are with their babies for
two
two
trans.
transfers. But I think I was left with Taylor because I was still struggling and the president knew that. So he didn't want to change things up on me. I remember by that point, we were pretty much best
Yeah,
friends.
yeah.
Like, I don't feel like there was any like issues in that way. And we were working like more regularly in like a way that worked well for both of us.
Hmm.
And we ate lots of empanadas and lomitos.
I remember one week we had a limito like every single night. I remember that, and I love that.
How did we have enough money for that?
How did we not like gain a ton of weight? I don't know.
I know. I know. The walking saved us.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah,
Anything.
I remember, yeah, with that third transfer, I think it was hard. I think because yeah, you don't usually stay that long with your trainee, but yeah, we Mal and I had just gotten along so well that it worked, and but I do remember throughout like that the time where it was like, okay, we need to like take a break and breathe or drink some water, and I remember that like was hard, um,
Yeah.
and but I honestly I saw you grow so much in that training where it was like I saw you fighting um to try and like be okay, like okay, we can do this way and it's okay, or we can do it this way and it will still come out in a good result or something like that. But I remember watching you um mentally, and then sometimes like in your expressions, like you were fighting to do the right thing and to always
Yeah.
find what was right for you. And that's hard. That's with everyone's mental health journey. It's like what is the best um thing for me, especially when they're new, like these new anxieties and fears and worries. Like, how do you do that? And as a missionary, it's kind of hard. You have to figure it out, and there's no stopping the work necessarily. But breaks are great, and I think that saved me, and I think that saved our companionship and saved you in a lot of ways.
Do you remember if I had started talking to the mission therapist while we were together, or if that came later?
Oh, I don't remember. I wouldn't be surprised if it happened during
I
our
think I
time.
did. I
Okay.
think I did. Like, I don't think that the panic attacks and stuff were
Mm-mm.
happening, but I think like I did because they kind of just chalked it up to homesickness. I
Mm.
remember like they were just like, yeah, she misses home, which I'm sure I did. But yeah, it is interesting because like I like my mental health like majorly declined after you left, probably because of that change that president was afraid to make.
Yeah.
Because he was like, oh, she's already
I remember
kind of
feeling so
fragile.
like so sad to leave, and just like I saw your face and I'm like,
Yeah.
you got this. But yeah, it's a scary change. I didn't want to leave my trainer. I sobbed my eyes for days after she left. I was like, I can't do this. There's no way I can
And
do
then
this.
some people, there could be two other people on this podcast that would be like, oh, thank goodness I got away from my trainer.
Yeah.
Well, and I have no idea who this podcast is going to reach. Sometimes I'm like, oh, like just my regulars will listen, but sometimes it reaches more people than I thought. But
Yeah.
for some context, like as missionaries, like we're very young.
Yeah.
Like I was 19 my first time away from home. You were 20,
20,
21? How?
21.
Yeah. And so I also think it's just such a I think part of the reason like it seems like my mission was what ruined my mental health or like that's what made me like not okay is because of the easy life I'd lived up to that point and just like my stress had never reached the tipping point that it needed for me to not be okay. Because, like, now, even in regular life, I still struggle sometimes because there's more stress, because I'm an adult. Like, I'm not just a kid living in a really wonderful family, like, living life. And so I think that that is part of what happens on missions, and maybe why so many people have such a hard time is because it's like, this is really hard. While other people, I don't know if you knew missionaries like this, but I definitely did, have a much better life on their mission, that they left somewhere that was not good and they never want to go home because
Yeah.
it's so much better.
Hmm.
So I can't think of anyone specifically, not that I should call them out anyway.
Yeah.
but but yeah, I just think that's part of why we see so many missionaries really having a hard time. That and also being away from home and like lack of like coping mechanisms. But this actually leads really well into the next question, which is what were the hardest parts of being a missionary?
Yeah. No, I loved everything that you said. Because it's so true, just reflecting on that. Anyways, but the hardest things I think I remembered, um, one was the rejection that you face as a
Mm.
missionary, right? You have a message that you're trying to share with other people that has brought you joy and happiness. So you're trying to just share that with others. Um, but you know, there's so many factors, right? Like people who don't want to listen to a random stranger, people with a different religion, um, those who don't care. It's hard to face that rejection and then continue to feel motivated to continue to um, find people. Um, I did feel like that was a hard one for me. Not that it got me down, but I was just like, well, you know, I don't know what we're going to accomplish today if, I'm just going to get yelled at or if I'm just going to, hear a bunch
Yeah.
of no thank yous or things like that. That was hard for me, I think, to learn to accept. I think eventually I was, okay with the rejection. Not that I loved it, but it was like, yeah, it happens. But in the beginning, I was so sensitive about it and
Mm-hmm.
felt scary, right? Again, we're so young. Um, we kind of get a crash course training of how to do this, and then we go out there and do the best that we can. We're not salesmen, we're not all these things, but we're just trying to bring the spirit with us where we go, and it's difficult. I'm such an introvert that reaching out
Mm-hmm.
to people in the streets or at their houses was so hard for me to overcome. I had never done that in my life, and to think that that was my life from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. to go and talk and
Yeah.
contact people, that was hard. I struggled with that. Um, I'm just more reserved and quiet, and so that was just hard for me to find the inner strength and the inner desire to like go and reach out to other people. But you learn ways to do it, creative ways to do it, or you have a good companion that loves to talk to people. I had a couple like that, and I was like, fantastic. You make the contacts, I'll help you tag team this lesson, and it'll be great. And that's, we thrive like that.
Yeah, yeah. I think that was part of probably what was so intimidating for you to start to train because you weren't that old of a missionary, right? You're
I
like,
was about halfway through my mission. I think I was 8 months in.
oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
for some reason I thought it was more like 6.
Oh,
But that's, I don't know, that's still not that long.
no,
But
it's not.
so that was probably scary to know you were going to be the lead on everything because I remember your other 2 companions and wasn't it just your trainer and
I have
one
three
more? Oh, 2
companions.
more.
Yeah, my trainer and then my
Yeah.
second and third companion. And yeah,
And they were all pretty talkative
yeah.
from what I remember.
Yeah, I was
So,
glad to kind of tag along and do that, but yeah, this is kind of my first time um really taking the lead and things, and so but it was good. Like Mal said,
and
you spoke Spanish and it was like it was awesome and people were so interested in you, so it was fun. It was so cool.
I feel like one of the hardest parts for me was just the rules. And you know that.
Yeah.
Like, I had such a hard time, like, hearing I was supposed to be exactly obedient, but also feeling like that was out of reach. And then also feeling like that wasn't fair. And, like, I think it just sent me into like a spiral of like overthinking about it. Did you? But I don't feel like you ever really struggled with that. I feel like you always kind of did what you felt like was best for you, maybe until I came and was like, rules, rules, look at this. We should be doing this. But up until
Yeah.
that point, what was your relationship with the rule book?
I didn't know that there were so many rules and things. I was obviously like aware of them, and my trainer went over all these things. Um, I definitely feel like I lived more like spirit of the law versus like letter of the law. And I think that, but
Mm-hmm.
that's just also who I've always been, like as well. Just always kind of going like leading by emotion mostly, which not always is in a good way. But
Yeah.
I did struggle because I got into a couple of companionships where that was like the only thing we ever talked about was rules. And, I had a companion get upset with me because I was chewing gum in the apartment. And to me,
Mm-hmm.
that was not something that mattered really because I wasn't going to ruin our image as, representatives of Jesus Christ. But, so there are some things where like, there were companions that the way they treated the rules turned me away from like wanting to, be exact with them, if that made
Like,
sense.
the
Kind of
more you
rebel.
tell me to follow the rules, the
Yeah.
less I want to.
Yeah. And yeah, yeah, it was just, but I think it was more like I generally I knew how to carry myself and the rules of the mission the best that I could. But they were very hard to follow. There were some things where I was just like, why is this a rule? Why is this? And but I understand. Like I understand they're for our safety. They're for um us to actually, really, really be involved in the work and to get along with our companions, to have the spirit, just so many things. Um, but rules were hard. They're hard to follow. They are. We're all young. We're all together in a foreign country, and I think um, you want a good experience from it. But that ultimately just comes down to um, how Heavenly Father feels about your work and how you communicate with Him and all those things. And so, um, yeah.
Yeah. I think part of what happens too is like, because I know before I got to the mission was particularly disobedient, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And I think what can happen for those who really, really care about the rules is they are thinking, like, this message is for me. I'm not doing enough. This and this, when really they might be talking to those who are doing much worse. But the sweet missionary who doesn't realize that that kind of stuff is happening throughout the mission thinks like, oh, it's because I went 10 minutes over at lunch that we have this message, you
Hmm.
know? I don't know. That's kind of what I've noticed with like mission stuff, because my brother served in like a particularly hard mission, where there was like a lot of disobedience as well. And I know he experienced that, where he was like, well, I need to follow this to the letter of the law. But really, they were trying to stop other things from happening. So that's why they were coming down so hard. But
Yeah.
he felt like the messages were for him.
Yeah, it's interesting. I remember feeling those same things. I knew that I wasn't letter of the law or like very, very on,
Mm-hmm.
very, very exactly obedient. So every time there was something that came up about obedience, whether it was trainings or messages, I always felt like it was directed at me. And I felt, and maybe that's in some ways it's a good thing, but
I
I think
agree.
in some ways as well, like missionaries had to be careful about overcorrecting that, because
Yeah.
then I think you lose some love. I think you lose some kindness and compassion in some ways. So it's a hard balance to find, and it's possible. I mean, we've seen plenty of missionaries in our mission that were exactly obedient and just the best kind of people.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's part of, your mission journey is discovering what that is for you and how you get there. And I think it's crazy, but yeah, it's something to be aware of for sure. But
I also don't think I understood the atonement yet as a missionary, and I wish I would have, because one, I needed to be teaching that and believing that, because that's the message everybody we're working with can probably benefit the most from, is
mhm.
knowing that somebody died for their sins and that somebody has suffered everything they've suffered. Because I don't feel like I understood that I could do the whole mission, quote unquote, wrong. Like I could shut myself in the apartment, not do anything at all, and like do whatever you would picture the worst missionary ever doing, and Jesus would still have died for my sins and love me just as much, you
Mhm.
know? I don't think I understood that. So that's what I would hope missionaries understand, is that the atonement doesn't just apply to their investigators. It's there for them too.
Absolutely. I don't know if you remember this, but like when we talked about you coming in and I was dealing with certain things as a missionary, like I had to go through a pretty intense repentance process, just me and Heavenly Father. Like godly sorrow,
Mm-hmm.
just pain and embarrassment, shame, all these things. And it was in Mal's during the time that Mal and I were together that like I remember like going into our closet room. I don't know if you remember those dressers, and just like
Mm-hmm.
kneeling on my luggage and just sobbing my eyes out. Just Like there were things that I needed to fix, and the atonement became really real for me in that time that we were together, because you were such a new missionary that I already knew that I was making mistakes, and I wanted to correct them. I wanted to fix them. And so it is cool. Every missionary, I believe, comes to that knowledge of the atonement at some point in their mission. And it was cool that I got to experience that with you there. Um, and it was just awesome. Like you said, it's not just about like the investigators that get to experience that message, but if that atonement applies to you as a missionary, it totally transforms the way that you think, believe, teach, which is so cool because I didn't have that experience before, and I had to have it as a missionary. So
And I remember like when you were going through that, like I didn't feel judgment towards you, like or anything like that. I really didn't. I feel like I felt more judgment towards myself all the time. We're always more like critical of ourselves. But looking back on it, I'm like, yeah, that would have been something really hard for you to have gone through while you were on the mission, but I feel like you killed it and you figured it out and you had a great rest of your mission. If I'm remembering correctly.
yeah, no, it was great. No, I appreciate that. And there
Yeah.
are there are a few people that I attribute to that helping me, and you were one of them. And then we had a
Hmm.
sister training leader and a zone leader and a district leader that all kind of paid a little bit of that I paid tribute to every once in a while, that like helped me get through that. And I loved Mel for that because she didn't have she's so new in the mission. I'm like, she doesn't deserve to come into all this and have to carry a little bit of a weight with me, but she did. And she didn't know that she could. I didn't know that she could, and she did. And I just thought that was super admirable because she didn't need to come into other issues, but she did. She faced them with me. She was strong. Um, I just thought that was awesome. I was so scared that I was messing everything up for you. And I'm like, this is like, I hope I'm not her worst nightmare because maybe I was. But
I think honestly, like I don't even know if I could have been in the mission as long as I was without you. I needed somebody like you and more importantly than the mission because the mission is, just a small portion of our lives. Like I've expressed this to you before, I think, that like you taught me how to love. Like you taught me that it's not about the rules. It's not about getting from point A to point B because I was so blind to that of just like we go here, then we go here that I was almost robotic. But you knew how to see people in a way that I didn't know yet. And I feel like I'm so much more real now and so much more present. And I know how to see people and to love people. And even though I still have those, what you could consider anal habits of like just being how I am, I feel so much more like just present in my life and able to see what actually matters. Like it reminds me of like the story of like the Pharisees, I think in the New Testament, when they're criticizing Jesus Christ for like healing a man on a Sunday. And like, I don't want to be in that group, And I feel like you were the start of helping me not to be in that group who would criticize Christ for doing something on a Sunday. So thank you.
you're welcome. That was very, very sweet. I attribute that to my
I
trainer. My trainer was the same way. I don't know that I knew what I was doing at all, but I watched her example of just the way she loved people, and I knew from the second I saw her do that, that's what I wanted my mission to be, and that's what I hoped that everyone around me could at least learn. But I also needed kind of the little push, and you gave me that push as well. There was a balance between love and work, and I think I found that in you as well. So I'm just grateful for that. Grateful for you.
Oh, just such a love fest.
I love
I love
it.
it. Okay, awesome. So what were your favorite parts of being a missionary?
I
Curious.
There's so many awesome things. I think as a missionary, your heart just grows so much as you come to love people and culture, and sometimes you're really good friends with your companions, and that makes it even better in the time that you're together. I loved the holidays as a missionary. Um, I remember my first holiday was Christmas. Like I was maybe a couple weeks into the mission and it was Christmas. And that was in some ways was rough, but I remember we were in a big plaza sharing a message with everybody. There were activities, there were pictures, and there were
I remember
missionaries.
this. Was this during the like Illumina El
Yes,
Mundo?
Illumina Mundo. It was the first year, maybe the second year that they had done it.
Yeah.
So it was
It was
still
so
pretty fresh
cool.
and it was so magical. So we had, all these things, and we were dressed up kind of in like red and black and green, whatever, very Christmassy, festive things. And there were missionaries everywhere, people everywhere. And then later that night, we watched a video, the second year of the Illumina Mundo. Um, and I remember standing in the plaza, just kind of near my trainer, just but kind of by myself. And everybody in this area is watching this video. I mean, not a single eye is anywhere else. And there's a part of the video where they're showing humanitarian work where some eye doctors are coming to help some people. And the doctor comes over to a woman sitting in a chair and starts to put his thumbs over her eyes or puts glasses on her face. And then right then they switch it to Christ um,
Oh, that's
healing
so
somebody,
cool.
their eyes, their blindness. And that moment, I still get chills. I looked around where I was and just couldn't believe where I was at. Like I was a missionary. I had his name on my chest. I was set apart to do this work. Um, and I just the love that fills me, my mind, my heart, my soul, and seeing all these people, I was like, this is what it's about. If this was the only experience I had on my mission, I would have been content because that was one of the most life-changing experiences that I had. So emotionally driven, so um, struck me to my core. I mean, I couldn't believe what I was doing. I couldn't believe that these people were here because we were planting seeds in people's hearts, in their minds. But we were helping some people, these young missionaries just selflessly trying to be here for other people and to be here for Jesus Christ was such a unique thing. I felt like I had an out of body experience to witness that. And I was like, okay, I can do this. I was there and I was like, okay, if this is what it's about, I'm in. I'm all in. At
Oh,
that point, I was all in. I was still learning about a lot of things, but at that point, I was like, okay, there's really no turning back, and I don't really want to turn back. And it was cool. I didn't know that I could feel that. I didn't know that I could find this depth of commitment, but I really did. And it was just being selfless and serving other people. I just, there's not a lot that compares to that. There really isn't. The pureness of that joy is unearthly. And there's a reason that it's unearthly. It's just so cool. It's just awesome to find. I just think that was one of the best things about being a missionary. If you let yourself be selfless, it is just life changing. It really is.
that is incredible. And I don't know if I ever fully experienced that on my mission, but I've experienced similar things since where it's just been like God is great.
No,
Like I like even just the recognizing that Jesus Christ is like the most important message. And like that's why like I keep talking about him on my podcast because I can't help it.
I love
Like
it.
I
Love it.
I love talking about mental health, and I think that there's a lot of overlap when it comes to recognizing that Jesus Christ died for us and loves us to, feeling better. And that's may not be the path for everybody, but for me, I can't help but talk about him because it's amazing.
I
So
agree.
I was gonna say the best part was Lamitos, but yours was
Oh
pretty good too.
my
So
gosh. Yes. Lamitos, I still dream about them every time. A limito with the salsa de ajo, the garlic
yes.
sauce, and then like an ice cold Coca-Cola. Oh my gosh. There's not many things in life that I would die for, but
Yeah. Oh my goodness, I love it. Um, so I don't know if we've talked about this either. How was coming home? How was adjusting to coming home from your mission?
I was happy to be home. At the near the end of my mission, I guess you had experienced it some when we were together. I had just a health scare, some newly developed health things that happened towards the end of my mission that they were happening pretty consistently, and I couldn't shake them, and I didn't
Are
even
you
I
talking about like when you'd get really like faint and
yes,
weak?
yeah. I
Okay.
we figured out what it was later. Yeah. Anyways, but it was hard, and so going home, I was ready. I was ready to go home. I was excited to rest. I felt like I just really needed to rest. I was exhausted. I was so tired, and that's what you do after 18 months, however long you serve, because you give so much of yourself mentally, physically, emotionally to this work. Um, so I came home and I didn't have a job prepared. I didn't have school prepared because I just wanted to rest. Like that's all I could think about was I just wanted to go home, take a vacation, like just not have to do anything. And I think for the first couple weeks that was okay for me. I was more than happy to do that, go see friends and people. But I think as time went on over the next few months, it was really hitting me that, I felt like I lost my purpose. um, my whole identity for 18 months was a representative of Jesus Christ. And so coming home, you know, I don't have that title anymore, um, which was hard to let go of, but I was ready in a lot of sense to let go of that. But then it was like, I don't know what my next thing is. I don't know. I'm no longer Amana DeWitt. So what
Mm-hmm.
does Taylor have next? And I think that was hard. I didn't know what to do. I found a job after some weeks. I wasn't in school, so I was just kind of cruising. Like I would make it from week to week, event to event, really. So I don't know that I did not prep myself, I think, in the right way to stay busy and to just jump into life. Because I thought that,
Mm-hmm.
the rest would be great for me. I think it
Mm-hmm.
was, but not as much as I gave myself. I think I needed it shortened and I needed to have things ready for myself. Because I needed to find a new
Like a few
purpose.
weeks off rather than like
Yeah.
how long am I gonna be off?
Yes.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
get what
There
you're
was no
saying.
end in sight for my vacation, whatever I thought it was. And I needed to have things prepared for myself because as a missionary, you have everything planned every day from morning till night. You know exactly what to expect, you know what to do and teach, you know what to say. You come home and it's such a different lifestyle. And when I came home as well, my parents had just gotten divorced. And so I came home to a very different home that I didn't want to be in. It was not joyful. It was not filled with the spirit. It was not things that I was used to on the mission where I would love to come home and just do all these things. But so I adjusted to not having plans, but then also a very disrupted family life that I couldn't seem to figure out. Um, so it was hard. It was hard. I was ready to be on my own again. I think that was the biggest thing. Coming home and then being dependent on other people or people dependent on you. Um, I kind of outgrew it, my home life. By the end of that year that I came home, so about 6 months later, I moved to Utah, had roommates, and that's the life I was ready to live. Go do that again, be on my own, live with like roommates, go to school, work, and that's what I was ready to do. I just did it a little bit too late, is what I felt like I had happened for me.
I know a lot of people almost have a harder time adjusting to coming home than like I did as a missionary. When I came home, I did jump straight into things, which I think was good. I was still figuring things out mental health wise. And I remember going to a doctor and just like crying because I felt like he wasn't listening to
Oh,
me. Like I was like, my parents were there with me, and like I just was like, what do I do? Like like they sent me home to fix this, and like we can't fix this, you know? And I remember feeling frustrated about that.
Yeah.
But then I got with a really, really good therapist, and then eventually did find medication that worked, at least at the time. And then it was okay. But I remember for the first couple of weeks feeling a little bit helpless because I was still having panic attacks. And like, I was like, I'm home. I'm not supposed to anymore. But I think it'd come like almost like habitual at that point. Like my body was just having them. So I remember that being hard, but ultimately, as soon as I was like even feeling a little bit better mentally, I was so much better at home than I was on the mission.
Yeah.
But I know I have a cousin who had a hard time adjusting to being home. Like that's very common. I meet with students all the time who have a hard time being home and they're like, I don't know what I want to study. I don't know. I don't know. Like I just, I'm here now. Like they didn't think past the mission kind of like you
Yeah.
were expressing.
What do you tell those people when they come to you like that?
I usually tell them it just takes time because it does. I'm like, we'll just get you into some generals. You don't need to know right away and then go from there. Because usually they're talking to me because I advise for languages. And so if they served foreign language speaking, I see a lot of them like even like 2 or 3 days after they get home. So
Wow.
they're just very, very fresh. And I'm usually just like, I'm sorry, it's probably going to suck for a while. I don't really say that directly, but looking at them walk out of my office, I was like, it might be a rough first semester,
Yeah.
but it'll
Yeah.
get better.
Yeah. That's really all you can
Awesome.
say.
Yeah. Well, this conversation has been so fun.
Yeah.
Just as a last thing, anything else you want to share, like to prospective missionaries or recently returned missionaries that you think could help them?
Yeah, I did think even in my awards right now, I've seen several missionaries return home for whether it's mental health or a repentance thing or things like that. Um, a mission is a hard thing to do. It is not an easy task to accomplish. But I think what we have to believe is that, we can do it. You can serve a mission because you can do hard things and you have to do hard
Hmm.
things sometimes. Um, and I just feel grateful for my mission in a lot of ways because it's brought me to where I'm at now. Um, and I feel like I'm living a dream with my family that, I didn't know that my
No.
life could feel this way. And it's
Yeah.
because of my mission, it's because of my time with you and my leaders at that time that you were there with me, that my my life pivoted to the right direction. And I just I can't believe it. I just really can't believe it. It's a miracle, and I feel grateful for that. But it's because, missions are hard and you have to go out and do hard things. But I also firmly believe that the Lord will not push you past your limits, and you can't
Uh-huh.
run faster than you have strength. And so I think it takes a lot of reflection, a lot of time with the Savior, with Heavenly Father, to really know what that is for each person. And I knew that you did that as well, right? You had your time as a missionary. That was exactly what Heavenly Father knew was your time. And even if it did feel incomplete or felt all these different ways, the Lord wasn't going to push you any further because you did what He asked you to do. And that's the miracle about it, which I think is so awesome. And now you get to share your perspective with other people. I just think that's awesome. So we can do hard things. You can do hard things because you have to do them in your life. A mission is one of those things where I felt like it's prepared me to face and confront hard things that comes with being an adult, comes with growing in your life. Um, but it's possible. And like I said, the atonement is there for you to make mistakes and to learn from them and grow. It's also there to uplift you when you need it. So nothing's impossible. You can go out and come back, but you can return as a missionary if that's what your plan is.
Hmm.
You can also stay home and recover at home, and that's okay. There's so many opportunities to serve and to show Heavenly Father what you're made of because He knows exactly what you're made of. And I just love that there's so many paths that we can choose and that we can follow that still lead to Him. and
Oh, yeah.
still give the fullness of life that it has to offer and still feel a completeness of joy. So I just think it's awesome. There's just so many ways to do it. But we have to be willing to do hard things and confront some fears, confront some hard things, but we'll be okay. Whatever the outcome
Yeah.
is, we will be okay. And you're a prime example of that. Missionaries that complete their missions, they're a prime example of that. Everyone that has something to do in their life, even if you don't serve a mission,
Yeah.
it will be okay in the end. The Lord knows exactly what He's doing, and I just think that's the best we can do is just to trust Him,
Mm-hmm.
to have compassion for those around us, to learn about other people, and just to do our best. That's
Yeah.
all He asks.
Absolutely. I think I completely agree with the message that we can do hard things and everybody's hard things looks different. My
Yes.
hard thing wasn't really a whole mission or anything like that. It was more about we need you to gain more empathy, more sympathy for those around you. And I think that that was the lesson I needed, much more than whatever else a mission could have looked like for me, is because it's going to directly influence my relationships and the people I help in my career. And so I completely agree with your sentiment that God knows what He's doing and He gives us those experiences that we need to have. So, okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. I felt like this might be out of your comfort zone, but you said yes right away, which I was really happy about.
Hey, I feel honored that you asked me to be here. So thank you for giving me this chance. This was so fun.
Okay, awesome. Well, we'll talk to you later.
Okay, goodbye.
Thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed a little bit more insight into what we think about missions and mental health. And make sure you tune in next week. We're going to continue with part 2 of my cognitive distortion series. So make sure that you check it out. Learning about the pitfalls we can fall into with our thinking is super helpful to start feeling better fast. It can be just almost like a little trick or life hack. So make sure you listen for some practical advice on how to get feeling a little bit better, especially if you're feeling anxious or depressed or any of those feelings. So come back next week. Hope to see you there.